Today, we're talking about how businesses, small businesses, are being dramatically impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and how they can survive during it. I welcome to the conversation Andrea Sager. Andrea, you're a small business attorney and an entrepreneur, so you have your hands in this subject all day. Thanks for being with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
We've seen a number of small businesses nationwide struggle, and we've seen some survive. When it comes to safety, how important is that to communicate to the workers and to customers?
It's critical because any little mishap can cost you your entire business, unfortunately. And as small business owners, there's just put this entire humongous load on us that we're now responsible for. So it's critical to make sure you are abiding by local guidelines and ensuring that your employees are staying safe and your customers.
Now, I know that you're in the Houston, Texas area, so you have a number of counties. People might live in Harris County, but do business in another county. And then, e- how important is it for the business owner to know what's happening in my county, in my city, and also what's happening regionally?
Yeah, so you definitely need to make sure that you are abiding by local guidelines, as in city, county, state. But in order to combat all of that, if you just implement the strictest guidelines, you're pretty much going to be safe no matter where you are. So as long as you are ensuring that top level of safety and those guidelines, then you should be fine no matter where you're located.
And you also say to actually appoint a person within your company, sort of as the safety officer. No matter what their other job title is, now safety is number one.
Exactly, because the laws are changing every single day. The laws, the guidelines, everything is changing. So you as the business owner, you have a million things going on. So you want to appoint somebody to take that responsibility to ensure that you and the entire company is ensuring safety for the employees and the customers.
So let's say you, as the boss or the business owner, you're having long dealings with your, let's just say, chief safety officer. You have a number of employees who are eager to get back to work so they can keep earning a paycheck. How do you communicate what you're working on and answer that question of when can I come back?
Yeah, so it's going to be different for every business, every industry. I know some counties, bars and clubs are closed. Some counties, everything's still closed. I think most everybody's pretty much opening back up, but there are still some limitations. So you need to make sure that you know exactly what businesses can be open. Make sure you can even reopen your business and let your employees know, hey, look, we have these limitations. And you also, with your employees, you have to be aware of ADA guidelines, Americans with Disabilities Act. And no matter what the guidelines are, they may be different for your employees and customers. So you have to make sure you're abiding by all of the safety precautions and ensure that you are protecting your customers and your employees, but you have to know they may be different for both parties.
This may be very difficult for some business owners to hear because, look, I get emails every day. My business hasn't been able to reopen. I am losing money every day. I'm on the verge of having to shut down permanently. How do you recommend that business owners and workers really balance this need to reopen and get a paycheck with the long-term viability of the business in question?
Such a great question. Now, number one, if you're able to reopen, absolutely reopen as soon as possible, as long as you're implementing the local guidelines. So make sure, if you have a local brick and mortar presence and you have customers are coming to your physical place of business, have hand sanitizer, require physical distancing, have the gloves, and you can even take it a step further and have them sign a waiver. So recently, the federal government, they're negotiating the latest coronavirus bill, which does implement liability protection for small business owners for the next 5 years. That means they're shielded from lawsuits. However, that has not passed. But some state governments are taking matters into their own hands and they are implementing similar laws. Now, I don't know if every state is going to pick up on that. Maybe, maybe not. But if they don't, you can still protect yourself with a waiver. Now, you don't want to say, hey, you sign your life away, but you do want to make sure that, the customer is agreeing, hey, I haven't had symptoms. I haven't been around anybody with symptoms that I know of. And they are agreeing not to sue you if they get coronavirus at your place of business or around the time that they have come to your place of business. So this waiver, they're not always enforceable, but right now it's the best you can do.
Yeah. You know, here in the Bay Area, we have seen some hair salons. So hair salons aren't open yet. You're looking at the work done by my husband, who is not a stylist.
That's awesome.
I know, we're all learning new skills, right? A lot of salon owners in the Bay Area have taken their concerns straight to the Capitol, and they have protested in front of the state Capitol to our governor saying, let me open my business. I can do it safely. You know, how come people can go shopping at Old Navy, but they can't come, get a haircut in my store? Are you seeing similar action and frustration where you are in Houston?
Oh, absolutely. Everywhere. Well, I think originally everybody just rebelled and did whatever they wanted to anyway, but absolutely there are those concerns. Luckily, I've been able to go to my local hair salon but they, I heard the concerns straight from them. They were shut down, had no income. And the thing is, they can't go and do in-home services. So some businesses have been able to pivot. They've been able to take things online. They can go in person to their places, their residence, but hairstylists, they can't do that here in Texas. They cannot go to somebody's house and provide those services, even if the customer is going to pay them $1,000 to cut their hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, I don't think that's right for small business owners. If they're willing to take the risk and if the customer is willing to take the risk, that should be on them.
So let's talk about that, because I have heard from some people who say, my stylist works in a salon that's closed, but she texted me and say, hey, look, come over and I'll give you a quick cut in the garage. So if a stylist does that on his or her own and has one of their clients come, meet them in the garage, and then someone ends up getting sick, I imagine that there's a problem, if not a liability. How does that get sorted out?
So there's a couple of issues there. Number one, are they allowed to provide in-home services? Maybe, maybe not. It depends by every state. Now, with that, it's a matter of, okay, was the hairstylist or was the customer, were they abiding by safety precautions? Were they wearing a mask? Was the hairstylist wearing gloves? Obviously there was no physical distancing, but were the other safety precautions in place? Because ultimately what's going to happen with the liability, if somebody wants to sue and that suit is allowed to move forward, was the hairstylist reasonable in doing what they did? And did they take the reasonable precautions? And if they did, then should they still be held liable for this? Right. What's the answer? Nobody really knows what the answer is. Right. Unfortunately, and that's the hard thing about being an attorney, is we don't always know what the answer is, but my job is to help my clients make sure they are implementing the best protection for them at the time.
Right, because you don't want to lose everything over a garage haircut that you thought you were doing a favor for a friend. Let me ask you about something else. We've had this pop up for sure in the Bay Area, and I imagine where you are in Houston and far beyond. Businesses say that they're going to sue their insurance providers, saying that they've been, faithfully paying their insurance premiums for decades. Now, during the pandemic, they sue them to have some of their losses covered, but the insurance provider says, oh no, pandemics aren't covered. How do you sort that out?
That is a headache that is going to take to sort out, but it will get sorted out. Number one, either the insurance companies will just settle and pay the business owners a little bit of money, or they'll fight it all the way, and then it'll open a can of worms for insurance companies. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that a lot of business owners, they're not happy about paying, because you hear it all the time. Oh, I keep paying my insurance company for this, and then they find this little exception. But a lot of people don't realize insurance companies have a lot of pressure on them. But what happens is the insured party doesn't want to keep pushing it. And that's how the insurance companies keep getting away with it. But so until there's somebody that wants to push it and keep pushing it with the insurance company and really fight it in a lawsuit, then the insurance companies aren't going to be held accountable. But I think we're going to start seeing a lot of small business owners put that pressure on insurance companies. And unfortunately, lawsuits tend to be very expensive. But I think we will see at least a couple of parties really push it with some insurance companies and really fight it to either get them to settle or have the court finally rule and say, no, you're paying these companies for what they've for their insurance policies.
Right, right. And finally, as everything is online these days, do you have any resources that you'd like to point our viewers to that because look, not everyone can hire a lawyer, right? Is there anything online and available to people who might be in a difficult situation that you think could help them out or at least begin to?
Absolutely. So I offer a free COVID waiver. It's at freecovidwaiver.com. And then I have a podcast, the Legalpreneur podcast. I have amazing resources for employers and business owners. And my Instagram account, I post tons of free videos on there. And because my job, I try to educate as much as possible for free. And if they want to hire me for services, then they hire me, but I educate as much as possible. So my Instagram account is at Andrea Sager Law, and my podcast is the Legalpreneur Podcast.
Got it. Well, Andrea Sager, small business attorney and entrepreneur, it's been a joy to talk with you. Thank you for joining us and best of luck during these times.
Thank you so much.